Why Hera planted her apple tree way out there instead of keeping it on Mount Olympus, I don't know. Maybe she just wanted to make it harder for heroes to steal her apples later on. If so, her plan worked. Mostly. Zeus and Hera stayed happily married for 300 years, which isn't a long time for gods, but it's better than your average Hollywood marriage. They had 3 kids together: a boy, Ares, who was what you'd call a problem child, a girl, Hebe, who became the goddess of eternal youth, and another girl, Eileithyia, who became the goddess of childbirth. Kind of bad planning having the goddess of childbirth last after you've had 2 kids. It's almost like Hera thought, wow, this childbearing stuff, this hurts. We should have a goddess for this. After their 3rd kid was born, Zeus started to get the 400-year itch. He remembered the good old days when he was a single guy, ambushing goddesses in snake pits and fun like that. He started looking at other women and flirting again. He'd promised to be a good husband, and he had been, for a while. But when you're immortal, those vows about as long as you both shall live take on a whole new meaning. The more he flirted, the more upset and suspicious Hera got. What she hated most were all the kids Zeus had by other women. They just kept popping up like weeds. Zeus claimed that they were all from previous relationships, but that excuse didn't really cut it. Some of the kids were mortal, and they definitely didn't look over 300 years old. Every time one of them showed up, Hera imagined the other gods snickering behind her back, whispering about what a fool she'd been to trust Zeus. Finally, she blew her lid. She shouted at Zeus, "You keep having kids without me! You think it's funny? You think I appreciate you going back on your promise?" Zeus frowned. "Is that a trick question?" "See how you like it," Hera cried. "I'm gonna have a kid without you, without any man. I'll have the baby all by myself." Zeus scratched his head. Honey, I don't think it works that way." "Bah!" Hera marched out of the throne room. I don't know how she did it. Since her wedding with Zeus, Hera had become the goddess of marriage and motherhood, so I suppose she had certain powers. Anyway, out of sheer force of will, some very effective breathing exercises, possibly some Eastern meditation, and a proper diet, Hera got pregnant, magically, with absolutely no help. That was the good news. The bad news? When the baby arrived, he looked like he could have used some help. His head was misshapen. His whole body was covered in patches of curly black hair. He had a large chest and bulky arms, but his legs were shriveled and bent, one slightly longer than the other. Instead of crying, he made a grunting noise like he really needed to use the bathroom. He was the ugliest kid Hera had ever seen. Even though he was her own baby, she felt no motherly connection at all. No love, just embarrassment. Personally, I'm not surprised things turned out badly. I mean, you have a baby for revenge? That's a pretty messed up reason, but it wasn't the kid's fault. Hera said to herself, "I can't show this baby to the other gods. I'll be ridiculed." She went to the open window of her bedroom and looked down the side of Mount Olympus. It sure was a long way down. Who would ever know if the kid disappeared? She could always claim that she'd never been pregnant. False alarm. Before she could rethink this pretty terrible idea, she tossed the baby out the window. I know, totally cold, like the kid is something you can just throw away. But Hera was complicated that way. One day she was the perfect mother. The next day she was throwing babies out the window. Oh, but the kid wasn't gone. His name was Hephaestus, and we'll see what happened to him later on. In the meantime, Hera had other problems to deal with. The first time a mortal hero visited Mount Olympus, it was a big deal. His name was Ixion, and apparently he was the first human to figure out that you could kill other humans in battle. Congratulations, you win a prize. The gods were so impressed that he learned to fight other humans with an actual sword instead of just chucking rocks and grunting at them. They invited Ixion to a feast on Mount Olympus. You'd think the guy would be on his best behavior? Nope. He had too much to eat and drink. All the praise went to his head. He started thinking that the gods were actually his friends, his peers, his comrades. Big mistake. No matter how nicely the gods treated you, they never see you as their equal.